Another shooting in Texas. This time the victim were 18 kids, middle school kids, 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade. 2 adults, 1 shooter, 1 teacher. And once again, everybody lined up to push their own agenda, right and left. I saw Dana Lash out there talking about how we need more armed teachers. We need more self-defense classes. Then there were people who were out there in law enforcement who pushed more faster response, quicker response times, barricading our schools like armed camps. You had political leaders pushing the gun agenda. One wag was on TV on CNN talking about how they should suspend all illegal immigration investigations during this time because there are illegal immigrant kids that went to the school and may be afraid now to come forward and tell their story about what happened and come home to their parents. Everybody was doing things for their own agenda, for their own profit, for their own benefit. Nobody was addressing the real problem. Not one. One person, and one person alone on any station I saw who said something common sense. Kellyanne Conway did. She says, the problem is us. The problem is our kids are not being raised to love their fellow human beings. She's absolutely right. Kids today are raised without any kind of sense of morality, discipline, sense of values, a constant, steady upbringing in the home, proper role models in entertainment and in the household. They are essentially allowed to raise themselves using the internet as a guide to proper behavior. I saw some of the posts of the shooter, which I will not name. He obviously had serious issues with self-image, self-importance, narcissistic tendencies. He was dressing up as a cheerleader. He was constantly taking pictures of himself, looking at himself, Instagram. All signs of mental instability. He shot his own grandmother, who I guess was raising him, but essentially it looked like he was raising himself, which is what parents do today. They pass off the responsibility of providing a proper role model to their child, to nannies and grandparents and aunts and uncles and daycare centers. They're not given any kind of sense of morality with either religion or ethics or standards. Our schools do not give proper expectations, hopes, dreams to our children. They simply exist in a vacuum and then get fed all kinds of nonsense on what is essentially an electronic public street corner. It would be the same as if you allowed your child to walk down Hollywood and Vine at 8 o'clock at night on a Saturday night and allowed the people there to raise your child. It's no wonder kids are growing so screwed up. And then when they begin to act aberrantly, we feed them medication upon medication, send them to experts and treatments instead of doing what should have been done right from the get-go. A proper home environment, a proper sense of right and wrong, a listing of values of what's important, and treating each other with kindness and the value of a single human life. Kids today don't do that. And when you say that, oh, the next generation is not being raised right, don't discount that. Because it's been going on for generation per generation. Just because your grandfather said your father wasn't very good, and your father said you weren't very good, and I'm saying the next generation wasn't very good, insofar as what a proper raising is, doesn't mean they're wrong. It's gotten to the point where our kids no longer are acting irresponsibly now. They're actually openly shooting each other now. They're acting irresponsibly in their personal life. They're making poor decisions about the education that they choose for themselves. They're not given proper guidance on how to live a decent life. We've cheapened life with abortion, violent movies, violent video games. No one thing is the problem. It's a combination of things where everything is up for grabs. We tell our kids right and wrong is a matter of gray, not a matter of black and white. We say, let the child make the decision about what religion they are. Child can't make that decision. You have to make it for them. You have to provide the proper guidance. And someone's grandmother, instead of a proper home environment with a mother and a father, is part of the problem. And no one can address it. No one wants to. Because there's no profit in it. There's no benefit to it. No one wants to talk about it. If you bring it up, the hard left will claim that you're another Bible thumper. If you talk about morality and religion and values, even the hard right says you're not going far enough. They need to go to my church, not that guy's church. Everyone is judgmental. Simply making a post in social media releases a slew of argumentative behavior from both sides of the aisle. We've devalued human life to the point where no one seems to mind. Everyone says we're shocked and we're saddened, and everyone pushes their own personal agenda rather than addressing a real subject. What are the motivations of these shooters? Has anyone done a real study of it? Has anyone really examined what is going on? What do all these people have in common? I can tell you. All you have to do is look at their social media accounts. They're seeking some sort of guidance and image because they have none of their own. That's why they turn to guns and weapons. That's why they turn to aberrant mental behaviors. Because they don't know what right or wrong is. They have no concept, no clue. Because no one's told them what it is. Everyone said to them, well, you decide for yourself, right and wrong. You decide for yourself what religion to be. You decide what you should be sexually. You should decide. Well, a kid can't do that. They aren't developed fundamentally enough. Back in the day, when our country was first founded, we had guns, we had schools, we didn't have this problem. Because kids were raised in a proper environment. Kids were adults by the time they were 20. You don't have that now. That's why you're seeing these shootings. They have no understanding. They look to others for some sort of self-worth. They have no identity of their own. That's why they seek out to create an identity for themselves. The wild colors, hairs, the tattoos, the earrings, all this. It's all part of the same thing. They have no self-worth. And in a culture which is focused on narcissism, and you have no self-worth, you start to turn violent. No one wants to discuss it because it's a very difficult subject, and it's not something that's easily fixable. Everyone wants an easy fix. Well, just take away the guns. That'll fix it. You're going to exchange one problem for two worse ones. Everyone wants to bat barricades and turn schools into armed camps. That's not the solution. Creating a police state is not the solution. There's no doubt that it'll make a difference, but what it'll do is open up a can of worms that you don't want to open. Do you think metal detectors stopped 9/11? Do you think making safety matches stopped arsonists or fires? Of course not. It just manifested itself in a different way. And as we've gone down this road of Band-Aids and kicking the can, and everyone blaming each other, instead of simply instilling in children a care for their fellow neighbor and their fellow man, it's made more problems come up. The reason you have school shooting is because you have other problems that you passed on. We put safety devices in airports. Yeah, people don't do 9/11 anymore. They do something else. People have been killing each other since Cain killed Abel. That's not going to stop. What you have to do is make people a better person. Well, it's very difficult to do. No one wants to address it because it steps on too many toes. It offends too many sacred cows. Well, you can't tell a kid this. You can't tell a kid that. You can't say this. You can't say that. That's hate. This is racism. That's misogyny. And all boils down to one thing. Whether it's the top shooting, it's not white supremacy. Whether it's this school shooting, whether it's the Sandy Hook case, all of them all have one thing in common. People who are not good people. They were not raised right. They became aberrant. And where do we do? Do we step up our mental institutions? Do we start locking people up? Then we go down the road that Ken Casey warned us about. Do we become a police state? Do we remove the guns from everybody and then go down the road of a fascist, militaristic state? Do we arm and barricade our schools? No. It's a very complex problem. But it boils down to the way we're raising our children. And no one wants to admit that all of the experts who have been telling us to do all of these things since the 50s, the lack of discipline, the lack of morality, the lack of religion, whatever it is that provides a value system to give a child a self-worth, we're all ignoring it. And we won't admit to ourselves, the elephant in the room, they were wrong. We're out of time for this segment. I don't see anyone in the mass media talking about it. They all pushing their political agenda. We got to do something about guns. We got to do something about arming our schools, arming our teachers. That's not the answer. Any more would have been the answer in 1787. The answer is there's a problem with how we are raising each subsequent generation. And no one wants to do it because there's no profit in it, either politically or financially. God help the next generation that comes after us. We'll be right back.